From reindeer that like to shroom to inebriated monkeys, here are 10 animals that love to party. Whatever you do, do not challenge number 2 to flip cup. Number 10, reindeer. It turns out that Dasher and Prancer love to trip Christmas balls when they're not pulling Santa's sleigh. It's still unknown why reindeer in Alaska, Scandinavia, or Siberia consume special mushrooms, but they do and have done so for quite some time. Maybe mushrooms taste good to them, or maybe they're trying to reach an altered state of consciousness. Whatever the case may be, reindeer have an appetite for Amanita muscaria and other special mushrooms that are poisonous to humans. In fact, tribes in the far north were known to feed mushrooms to reindeer and then consume their urine in order to safely get the psychoactive effects. I think I'll stick with the contact high, thank you. Some believe that that's how the story of Santa Claus flying reindeer was born, from people seeing things after drinking tainted reindeer juice. That explains a lot, actually, but it still leaves the question of how Rudolph's nose turned red. That dude goes hard. Pop quiz, hotshot! How do you think a reindeer behaves on special mushrooms? See if you can guess the correct answer in the comments below, and stay tuned till later in the video to see if you're right. Number 9, dolphins and pufferfish. Dolphins have their own version of Puff Puff Pass, and it involves sharing an actual pufferfish. These fish are among the most poisonous vertebrates in the entire animal kingdom. When they become inflated, they release a potent neurotoxin called tetrodotoxin, which is fatal to humans. It doesn't really have the same insalubrious effect on dolphins. In fact, chewing on pufferfish seems to get them plastered. Pods of young and impressionable dolphins have been observed gently chewing on an inflated pufferfish and passing it around like it was some sort of reefer. Afterwards, they hung around with their noses at the surface and seemed to be mesmerized for hours by their own reflection. Get a job, dolphin. I just hope that pufferfish isn't an experimental getaway for these young dolphins. Before you know it, they'll be itching for stronger stuff like box jellyfish or blue-ringed octopus. Oh, hey, didn't see you there. Hope you're enjoying the video. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. That way, you'll never miss any of our newest content, and it helps other people find the channel. You're great, you're great. Number 8, Bohemian waxings. The Bohemian waxing, native to parts of Eurasia and North America, sometimes drinks so much that it has to go to rehabilitation. Number 7, just kidding. You didn't think I was gonna leave you hanging like that, did ya? You're silly. Bohemian waxings absolutely love rowan berries, and they eat hundreds of them every day. The fermentation of these berries produces ethanol, which waxings metabolize efficiently thanks to their large livers. However, they can still become sloshed, sometimes tragically so. Some of these waxings go full season 5 Tyrion Lannister and get too toasted to fly properly. They'll crash into cars and buildings, it's a mess. In the winter, when berries are less juicy, the birds can become dehydrated from the ethanol. Animal care workers in the Yukon have to take care of some Bohemian waxings when they're too twisted to fly. Number 7, wallabies. Wallabies on opium. That might sound like the name of a mediocre Australian punk band, but it's actually a real thing. Tasmania is among the world's largest producers of legally grown opium, which is then used in the pharmaceutical industry. Wallabies have reportedly developed a habit of hopping into the poppy fields and eating the plant's intoxicating head. Before she became Tasmania's first female premier, Laura Giddings spoke during a hearing on poppy field security. At that time, she was the island's attorney general, and she said, quote, "Crikey, we have a problem with wallabies entering our poppy fields, getting as high as a kite and going around in circles," end quote. I'm sorry, Australia, that was just horrible. Number 6, bighorn sheep are absolute fiends when it comes to consuming magic lichen. They'll risk their lives just to get their hooves on the stuff. In the Canadian Rockies, rare lichen has stimulating properties. These creatures normally don't stray from the herd, as they are a very social species, and getting a hit of lichen means navigating razor-thin edged outcrops, steep slides, and narrow ledges. Once they find green or yellow lichen patches, Bighorn sheep will use their teeth to scrape it off the rocks. After ingesting it, some may appear sick or even a bit ill-tempered. The lichen's addictive properties are quite clear, particularly since bighorns are willing to climb such precarious terrain just to get to it. Number 5. Jaguars will sometimes take a break from their predatory lifestyle in order to let off some steam with a little thing called yahe vine. Jaguars are some of nature's most fearsome predators, and they seem to be in touch with an ancient human practice. An episode from the BBC show Peculiar Potions showed a jaguar eating the leaves of a plant that's one of the main ingredients in the ayahuasca brew. Indigenous tribes in the Amazon basin have long used this brew in spiritual ceremonies. The practice has captured the attention of the Western world for its purported life-altering spiritual reveals. After consuming the yahe leaves, the jaguar in the BBC episode laid on its back with its eyes fixated on the sky above. This is essentially the jaguar's version of catnip. Others argued that the jaguar was actually experiencing a deep psychedelic state that altered its perception. The plant does contain some chemical compounds known to heighten the senses. In some indigenous spiritual traditions, humans, jaguars, and the yahe vine appear intertwined. The Tucano people believe that the yahe plant brew can induce something called jaguar eyes, which is an ability to peer into the spirit world. Number 4. Nature's little honeymakers are no strangers to getting buzzed. Whether it's from fermented nectar or other alcohol-based compounds, bees will sometimes get blitzed. I guess life in the hive can be pretty stressful. Unfortunately, most of these guys are real bad at handling their liquor. They'll collide with each other, forget their way home, or simply pass out with their little furry legs in the air. Doesn't sound like the worst Saturday night. And what's funny is that the hive has a strict no drinking policy, so bees that go home under the influence might get rejected from the hive or even attacked. Number 3. We may have found Tony Montana's spirit animal, as these caterpillars feed exclusively on coca leaves. In Peru and Colombia, the larva of the Illoria noyisi moth only seeks out the coca plant, which is the main raw ingredient in Tony Montana's favorite pastime. Most insects steer clear of the coca plant, as it can make them really sick and even terminate them. Yet Illoria noyisi larvae are completely resistant to it. This quality has led to an interesting proposition from the Colombian government. The plan was to release these moths in large numbers so that they could go and destroy all of the illegal coca plantations in the country. Although the plan never came to fruition, it's worth mentioning that even the 1990 Bush administration believed it to be a viable option. Number 2. Even though it's about the size of a rat, the pen-tailed shrew is not the animal you'd want to face off in a game of beer pong. For several hours, every night, this Malaysia native drinks the fermented nectar of the Bertum palm. Even though it has roughly the same potency as beer, this nectar boasts of one of the highest alcohol concentrations of all natural foods. The pen-tailed shrew typically drinks the equivalent of 8 to 10 beers. And after all that, they don't show any signs of drunkenness. These things are machines! It's still unknown why pen-tailed tree shrews are so much better at metabolizing alcohol, or how the consistent alcohol intake affects their bodies. Regardless, next time someone claims you drink too much, you can cut them off and say, well, at least I'm no pen-tailed tree shrew. It's answer time! So how does the reindeer act on special mushrooms? Because of their stout build, reindeer are largely immune to the toxicity of Amanita muscaria. That being said, they do seem to react to its psychoactive effect. Reindeer have been observed behaving belligerently, making strange noises and running around aimlessly. Some have posited that the tribal shamans first got the idea of trying special mushrooms by observing the effects they had on reindeer. Number 1. The last thing you'd expect to see in the Caribbean is monkeys having their very own cocktail party. Nevertheless, that's what's happening on the island of St. Kitts, where the vervet monkeys are known for stealing drinks from unsuspecting vacationers. They developed a taste for firewater in the 17th century, when the island was home to numerous sugarcane plantations. The vervets had been introduced to the island along with involuntary laborers who worked on the plantations. Once the monkeys discovered fermented sugarcane, they were hooked. They'd come down from the trees and just start grabbing unguarded or unfinished drinks. There's been so much monkey drinking going on that researchers began studying it. They found that, much like humans, monkeys fit into various drinking typologies. There are teetotalers, social drinkers, steady drinkers, and binge drinkers. While most of these creatures drink moderately, about 5% of the monkey population consists of full-blown alcoholics. Forget about monkey business. These creatures get hammered. They start fights and then pass out when they've had too much. Well, I wish we could say that doesn't sound familiar.